Hi all, and welcome to the 12th lecture related to Austrian School of Economics. The topic of today is capitalism. The reference book is always the same. Safety Amos is the author, and the book is Principles of Economics. So let's start again with a quote from Ludwig von Mises that wrote, "If historical experience could teach us anything, it will be that private property is inextricably linked with civilization." The extended monetary market economy is what allows the emergence of capitalism, the system of private ownership of capital goods in which individuals can buy and sell capital freely and decide how to employ their capital, reaping the rewards of using it productively and bearing the losses of using it unproductively. For Mises and the Austrians, the presence of a stock market is an effective litmus test of capitalism, because it is the unmistakable mark of a free market in producer goods, open to all members of a society, allowing capital to be allocated to those who use it most productively. Those who succeed in allocating their capital productively benefit by accruing process, giving them the ability to command more capital resources. On the other hand, those who allocate their capital resources unproductively will suffer losses that make their ownership of capital an untenable and expensive mistake, encourage them to selling their capital resources to buyers who are willing to pay a higher price because they expect to use these resources more productively. Capital is a process, and making a resume, in short sentence, capital is a process of relocating to more productive and more capital capable hands. And now, fundamental topic is that capitalism is entrepreneurial and not managerial. So an economy that has not developed a stock market is not a capitalist market economy. So this is the first stamp of a market economy. As it has not developed the level, without the stock market, it has not developed the level of economic specialization and the lengthening of capital structure and of production necessary to develop a market for capital. An economy that has its stock market forcibly closed by government will be a socialist economy, and its capital has been removed from the realm of market competition and placed in the hands of bureaucrats who do not own it, and cannot legitimately profit from it, and cannot perform economic calculation to decide the best production avenues and methods to utilize it. Mises' criterion allows us to divide economies into three categories: pre-capitalist, capitalist, and socialist. History for most of the world countries has been the development from pre-capitalist to capitalism, interrupted by forays into socialist devastation, like the examples of in Russia after 1917, Germany after 1933, and East Europe after World War II. Mises, in fact, also explained that capitalism is an entrepreneurial system and not a managerial one, and this is a fundamental difference. The subtle distinctions confusion is at the root of all attempts to override the market economy and replace it with central planning. In a capitalist economy, the division of labor comes down to the process of investment itself, dividing the act of investment in three different roles: the capitalist, the entrepreneur, and the manager. The process of investments begins with the capitalist, who chooses to defer consumption of economic resources and instead saves them to invest later. Lowering the time preference to allow for saving is the first step of investment, and in a modern capitalist economy, the investor can place their money in the financial market to be allocated to various lines of production or businesses. All quoting the capital is the entrepreneurial function of markets. Once the money is allocated to different business, it is the role for the managers of these businesses to use it for production of the final goods and services. A free market goods forces each capital owner to either use capital productively or lose it to those who can. The function of financial markets is to channel wealth from those who are willing to risk their savings, the capitalists, to entrepreneurs who exercise their judgment about how to allocate the capital to achieve the highest productivity. The entrepreneurs in turn entrust investments to professional managers who specialize in putting capital and labor into productive work. So there are these three different and distinct roles. And most modern economists are attributing the failure of socialist economic system to the problem of incentives. And now we discuss about the economic calculation. There is in fact little incentive in a socialist economy. Many, they said, the problem is incentives. There is in fact little incentives to do the least pleasant and hardest job, considering that the living standard will be equal. While this is indeed a problem for socialist economic system, it is not the fundamental economic problem of socialism. In fact, most socialist regimes have found a satisfactory answer to the incentive problem through violence. If you refuse to take out the trash or follow strict orders, you could be killed or sent to labor camps. Account of the collapse of socialist economics show that the problem was not absenteeism. The inmates in the Gulag had no choice but show up to their regular job out of fear of being sent to the gulags. But Mises identified the Achilles heel of socialist economic system as the inability to perform calculations to allocate capital goods without considering the private property associated with them. There is no rational means of ascertaining how to allocate resources without property price and a market for entrepreneurs and consumers to conduct economic calculation. How can planners know if a given stockpile of steel is better used in cars or trains if there is not a market for cars or trains? On what basis should a central planner determine the allocation? Under a market system, consumers buy cars and train tickets based on their preference, and private producers of cars and trains receive money that allows them to bid on capital goods. The highest bidder will be the capitalist who can use the resources most productively. The steel goes where it is needed the most. Some socialist economics replied that a socialist central planning board would order managers to assign prices of goods, observe the reaction of buyers, and use trial and errors to arrive at proper price in the same way capitalists would. They would react to a surplus by lowering the price, while reacting to a shortage by raising the price. In reality, the problem remained because the socialist central planners were not entrepreneurs. They did not have secure property in the goods they managed, and they could not calculate the profit and losses associated with different lines of production. Even if they did have a market for consumer goods, the government would maintain ownership of capital goods, as that is the definition of socialism. Rational economic calculation cannot happen based poorly on a market in final goods. Capitalism needs to bid for capital competitively for its most productive use to emerge, rewarding the most successful capitalist entrepreneurs with more capital and punishing the unsuccessful with less capital. If all capital is owned by one entity and that entity assigns it without using market price and calculation of profit and losses as a guide, capital cannot be allocated rationally. So economic decisions are made only in the context of scarcity, when each decision will carry with it a real cost and benefit the decision maker will experience in the real world. Without property, opportunity cost, and real life consequences, socialists pretend market bear no resemblance of the real thing. And now we move to the last slide discussing about economizing in the market order. The capitalist entrepreneur is the most important actor in the economic system, as he stakes his own property on his ability to anticipate changes correctly. He is in the force that affects change and creates economic reality. The general equilibrium models of modern economics are essentially worthless because they cannot accommodate the role of the entrepreneur, the one who shapes and creates economic reality. These models take economic reality as it is, ignoring how it came about, allowing no room for the process that will inevitably change it. According to modern economics, there are no entrepreneurs in the Misesian sense, only managers, and capital allocation is considered given. Therefore, they find that central planning can work, while Mises said that central planning cannot work. In fact, economic calculation is an entrepreneurial market economy and has several important economic consequences. The most obvious and notable is that it increases the productivity of capital investments. In fact, entrepreneurship brings the benefit of specialization and division of labor to the process of capital allocation and use. It allows savers to become capitalists by delegating the entrepreneurial and managerial functions of capitalism to others, thus encouraging more saving and more investment and lowering interest rate. This increase in savings and investment results in an increase in the length of the process of production by making capital available for progressively longer periods. Increased capital spurs invention and innovation, multiplying the range of goods and services available to all market participants. Economic calculation in entrepreneurial investment also leads to increased productivity to investment by constantly rewarding the most productive and punishing the least productive. The benefits of capitalist entrepreneurship in a market order extend beyond just the entrepreneur and the investor. Capitalist entrepreneurship leads to sustained increase in real wage, as more capital and more efficient capital allocation increase the productivity of labor. While wages will increase in real terms, they are likely to decline in the long run in nominal terms, as increased production of all goods will likely result in a drop of their nominal prices, comparing to money, which the market selects as good that is the hardest to produce, as we have seen in the chapter in the lecture related to money. Now we go to the last two paragraphs. Entrepreneurship and capitalists profit from their entrepreneurship, but their profit are generally fleeting, as they are subject to competition from other entrepreneurs who can bid up the price of that factor of production. Capitalists do not necessarily benefit from capital accumulation, which comes at high cost. There is always a risk of loss, as we've seen, and if there is a profit, the market will quickly start to eat away at it. Higher profit will inevitably accrue to the workers and landowners, whose wage and rents will continue to rise to match the increased productivity. Entrepreneurship is not all fun and games. It involves far more uncertainty than labor. It is entirely understandable that a large number of people prefer labor to entrepreneurship. Labor in a large market with highly productive division of labor can be very rewarding and involves far less risk. Beyond just economic benefit of capitalism, the social implication of capitalism is that encourages behaviors that are conducive to peaceful societal coexistence. Being able to behave in a civilized manner allows a person to enter into the economic networks that involve a growing number of people and a high degree of specialization. And with this, we are at the end of the lecture, and see you in the next lecture that will be about time preference. Bye!